It might have ended with 3 points in the bag, but make no mistake, that Rangers performance left a lot to be desired. Against a Livingston side that's been struggling at the bottom end of the table, the fans expected a statement, a dominant display, something to reassure them that this team is heading in the right direction. What they got, instead, was another frustrating 90 minutes that exposed the same issues that have plagued Rangers all season long: lack of identity, lack of control, and most worryingly, a lack of progress. The late winner from Max Aarons may have papered over the cracks for now, but it certainly hasn't silenced the noise. In fact, the questions are only getting louder, and not just about the man on the touchline. Russell Martin came out after the match with the usual post-match positives. He praised the first half, highlighted the individual performances, and pointed to the character shown in the closing stages. And to be fair, for about 45 minutes, Rangers did look like the better side. James Tavernier, once again, led by example, scoring with a moment of real quality. Not just a goal, but an acrobatic finish that showed his technical ability and drive. Martin even said he was proud of how Tavernier bounced back from the missed penalty. The captain took on multiple roles during the match, constantly trying to drag the team forward. That hunger, that effort, it was there. But that alone isn't enough to mask what followed. The second half started, and Rangers looked like a different team, but not in a good way. Whatever momentum they had built up evaporated quickly. Livingston grew into the game, and it didn't take long for them to take advantage of the space and disorganization creeping into Rangers' play. The equalizer was coming, and when it did, you could feel the tension creeping through the stands. Rangers simply lost control. For large spells, they were second to every ball, hesitant in possession, and lacked any sort of plan when it came to breaking down a side that, on paper, should not have posed this much of a threat. The truth is, that second-half performance could have cost them everything, again. And that's where the concerns really begin. This isn't a one-off. This isn't a bad day at the office. This is a pattern. One good half, followed by a drop in intensity, confusion in midfield, and a desperate scramble to pull things back at the end. It's been the same story too many times already this season, and fans are tired of watching the same script play out every week. That frustration has now reached a boiling point, and it's no longer just Russell Martin who's being held to account. Chris Boyd, never one to shy away from telling it like it is, has thrown the spotlight firmly on the club's leadership. He's not talking about formations or substitutions. He's going straight to the heart of the matter: recruitment, structure, and direction. And frankly, it's hard to disagree with him. Rangers didn't just need a new manager this summer. They needed a reset, a proper rethink. What they got, instead, was a rushed rebuild driven by people whose roles are now being seriously questioned. The sporting director, the head of recruitment, the decision-makers in the boardroom, all under scrutiny. And rightly so. You only need to look at the transfer window to see why fans are angry. Millions spent on players who aren't delivering. The most glaring example? Yuis Ferguson, a forward who cost the club somewhere between £8 and £10 million, and yet looks completely out of his depth. An expensive gamble, and so far, one that's failed miserably. That kind of signing tells you everything you need to know about the state of the club's recruitment strategy. There is no clear plan, no cohesive vision, just desperate moves hoping something clicks. It's not just poor business, it's negligence. Boyd's criticism didn't stop there. He also called out the so-called root and branch review promised by the board. That phrase has been thrown around for months now. But what has actually changed? Where are the results? Where's the transparency? The whole idea was meant to represent a fresh start, a hard look at what's going wrong and how to fix it. But as it stands, it feels like nothing more than a smokescreen. Another buzzword to distract from the fact that the same mistakes are being repeated over and over again. Fans aren't seeing a revolution. They're seeing the same stale thinking that's held Rangers back for years. And then there's the appointment of Russell Martin itself, a process that, from the outside, looked completely muddled. Martin had been out of work. He was relatively unproven at this level. Yet somehow, he ended up as the man tasked with leading Rangers through one of their most important seasons in recent history. Boyd questioned the logic behind the decision, and he's not alone. When you consider the caliber of other candidates available, it's hard to see what set Martin apart. Was it cost? Was it convenience? Because it certainly wasn't a track record of top-level success. This wasn't a bold statement. It was a shrug of the shoulders. The truth is, Russell Martin is under enormous pressure, and deservedly so. His team doesn't have an identity. There's no consistent style of play, no attacking fluency, no defensive stability. But it's not all on him. That's the key point here. The problems go far deeper than just the man in the dugout. From top to bottom, this club is crying out for leadership, for structure, and for clarity of purpose. And right now, it has none of those things. The win over Livingston may have kept things ticking over temporarily, but it hasn't fooled anyone. Supporters are watching closely. They're asking questions, and they expect answers. Because the reality is simple, performances like that aren't good enough. Not for a club of Rangers' stature. Not for a fan base that lives and breathes every result. The late winner might have brought a cheer, but it didn't bring confidence. It didn't inspire belief. And it certainly didn't change the growing sense that this club is on the brink of yet another lost season if something doesn't change fast. If that Livingston match left fans uneasy, then the midweek clash in Europe only poured fuel on the fire. A 1-0 defeat at Ibrox, on a night that was supposed to mark a strong start to the Europa League campaign, turned into yet another reminder of just how fragile this Rangers side has become. The performance was limp, the atmosphere was flat, and once again, there was no clear idea of how this team was supposed to play. And now, the pressure on Russell Martin has reached boiling point. But even worse than the result itself was the sense of inevitability that came with it. It didn't feel like a shock. It felt like a continuation of everything that's gone wrong over the past few months. The red card to Mohamed Diomande didn't help, of course. Going down to 10 men always changes the rhythm of a game. But let's not pretend that Rangers were in control even before the dismissal. The warning signs were there early: sloppy passing, a midfield that lacked bite, and an attack that looked toothless once again. There were glimpses, yes. A few decent moves, a couple of chances that on another night might have gone in. But at this level, glimpses aren't enough. European nights at Ibrox are supposed to be fierce, fast-paced, intimidating for the opposition. Instead, this one felt like a training exercise for a visiting side that didn't even have to be brilliant to get the job done. And that's what makes it so hard to swallow. Rangers were outplayed by a Belgian side who simply wanted it more. They pressed harder, moved with more purpose, and punished the hosts when it mattered. The goal, scored by former Celtic striker O Hyang-yu, was a dagger to the heart. Not just because of who scored it, but because it underlined just how far Rangers have fallen. A match like that, on home soil, should be a statement. Instead, it became a symbol of the crisis unfolding inside Ibrox. A team with no spark, a squad with no spine, and a manager who looks increasingly out of answers. After the match, the tone was familiar. Disappointment, regret, the same words we've heard too often already. Rangers had hoped to carry momentum from the win over Hibernian. They wanted to build something. But as has been the case too many times this season, it all fell apart the moment a real challenge arrived. Martin's players talked about pushing on, about sticking to their principles. But what does that even mean anymore? Because whatever the principles are, they're not translating to performances on the pitch. Not in Europe, not in the league, not anywhere that matters. Supporters know this. They're not blind. That's why the protests have started. That's why the banners have gone up and the chants have turned from support to fury. Fans aren't just upset, they're exhausted. They've watched this team stumble through too many games without any sense of direction. And they've watched a boardroom fail to provide the leadership or the decisions that could steady the ship. People are now calling for major changes, not just on the touchline, but in the offices upstairs. Patrick Stewart, the chief executive, has come under heavy fire. So has the sporting director. So has the recruitment team. The feeling is clear. It's not just a manager problem, it's a club problem. And perhaps the most worrying part of all this is that we're still in the early part of the season. It's not even Christmas, and yet Rangers already look like a side hanging by a thread. The margin for error is gone. There's no more room for experiments. No more time to find rhythm. Every match now feels like a must-win, not just for points, but to hold back the collapse of confidence among fans and players alike. Because if things continue on this trajectory, the consequences could be severe, not just for Martin, but for everyone associated with this project. To his credit, Martin isn't shying away from the heat. He said repeatedly that he won't back down from the challenge, that he wants the team to reflect belief and fight on the pitch. But those words are starting to ring hollow. Football isn't about interviews. It's about what you produce when the whistle blows. And right now, Rangers are producing performances that don't match the badge. It's one thing to be beaten by a better team. It's another to look lost, flat, and uninspired while it's happening. And that's exactly what Ibrox witnessed once again under the lights. And still, the bigger questions remain. What exactly is the plan? Where is the leadership that was promised? The so-called review that was meant to reset the club's direction has delivered nothing tangible. There's been no public explanation, no detailed vision for the future, just vague statements and defensive press conferences. The transparency fans were told to expect has never materialized. Instead, supporters are left guessing, left wondering how a club of this size, with this history, could allow itself to fall into such confusion. Rangers fans have seen this movie before. The warning signs are always the same: poor signings, disjointed football, growing unrest in the stands. And every time, it ends the same way, with more upheaval, more rebuilds, and another year wasted. The fear now is that nothing will change unless there's serious pressure from the top down. That unless those inside the boardroom are forced to answer for the state of things, the cycle will simply repeat again. And that's why the noise is growing louder. The people in charge need to listen, because silence won't save them this time. There's still a chance to salvage the season. That much is true. The league is long. There's time in Europe. There are cups to play for. But none of that will matter if the fundamentals aren't fixed. Rangers need to stop looking like a team built on guesswork and start looking like a team with purpose. That begins with clarity, in the dugout, in recruitment, and in leadership. Because for all the talk of ambition, of standards, of history, it means nothing if it's not reflected on the pitch. And right now, it isn't. The next fixture isn't just another game. It's a test of character. A test of whether this squad has what it takes to stand up and be counted, or whether the rod has already gone too deep. For Russell Martin, it might be make or break. For the board, it's a moment to either back up their words or watch the fans turn completely. One thing's for sure, there's no more hiding. The pressure is real. The questions are piling up. And unless this team starts delivering fast, it's not just results they'll be losing. It's the faith of a fan base that's running out of patience. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. In what's sending tongues wagging across Europe, Yuis Ferguson has reportedly called time on his spell at Bologna, with the young striker seemingly set to make a high-profile switch to Rangers. The whispers first surfaced late last night, leaving fans on both sides of the continent in a frenzy over what could be a seismic move for the Scottish Premiership outfit. Ferguson, who has been gradually carving out a reputation in Serie A for his sharp movement and eye for goal, is said to have been the subject of intense interest from several clubs this summer. But it appears it's the Glasgow Giants who have edged ahead in the race, with sources close to the player hinting that the deal is all but done. While no official announcement has been made, the murmurings suggest that the transfer could be finalized within the coming days, sending shockwaves through Italian football circles. Rangers supporters are buzzing at the prospect. The young forward, known for his blistering pace and clinical finishing, could be just the injection of firepower the squad has been craving. Insiders suggest that manager Michael Beale is particularly keen on Ferguson, seeing him as a perfect fit to bolster the club's attacking options ahead of a packed season. Meanwhile, Bologna fans are reportedly reeling, facing the prospect of losing one of their most promising talents to the Scottish League, a move that has left many scratching their heads. Rumors also hint at the financial side of the deal, suggesting Rangers may have secured Ferguson for a fee that some describe as a bargain for a player of his caliber. The timing, too, has raised eyebrows. With the transfer window still in full swing, the chatter around Ferguson's move is dominating sports talk, from casual pub debates to social media threads that are ablaze with speculation. While nothing is confirmed, the buzz around Ferguson's potential Rangers debut has already ignited dreams among the supporters. Could he be the spark to help the Jers reclaim domestic glory? Or is this just another fleeting rumor destined to fizzle? Either way, for now, all eyes remain firmly fixed on Ferguson as the rumor mill churns harder than ever. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.